2022, the much-awaited day. And it feels like Christmas Eve, and for a good reason, because in less than 6 hours, all the 290 constituencies, 46,000 plus, polling stations will be opened by the IEBC for all Kenyans, the 22.1 million in number, to exercise their constitutional right. This is Kenya Decides. My name is Ben Troy Njue. Welcome. Well, as I have said, is that we are just slightly over 5 hours till the polls are open. Kenyans will decide who will be the next president, governor, MP, county, women representative county assemblies as well, not forgetting their legislators. Are you ready? IEBC, in their last presser, said they are ready amidst some slight challenges, including mix-up of ballots, and 2 counties will not be looking for their governors. Those are just some of the things that we'll be putting into perspective as we await the polls to open. Remember, we have all 290 constituencies covered by our reporters to ensure you do not miss a vote, you do not miss a thing. And I'm not doing it alone. On my immediate right, Doreen Arange, KBC.
I almost said good evening, but I just remember that we are already on the 9th of August.
Yes, good morning.
It's exactly 21 minutes past midnight, and that's why we are here to keep you abreast with what is happening on this year's general elections. We are giving you wall-to-wall coverage, 360 degrees of these elections. And just as mentioned, our reporters are stationed across the country. We are talking about 290 constituencies, not forgetting the 46,229 polling stations, as well as our main national tallying center that is at the Bomas of Kenya. And we are here. I mean, it's up early, right, to keep you abreast up until 6 a.m. when the various polling stations will be open, and we'll be covering an array of issues in respect to this particular elections. There's still a lot that is being talked about, particularly in respect of IEBC preparedness, even as we talk about 5 hours to the begin of this polls. And the question still remains in terms of readiness. So keep it here up until the elections is complete. I'm Doreen Arange Okello.
And on my immediate left, Daniel.
Well, thank you very much, Troy, and good morning, Kenya. That's what I've got to say. It is an interesting day, and yesterday, a lot of things came through, and one was the announcement by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Chairman, Wafula Chebukati, and this has got to do with Kakamega and Mombasa. A new scenario has been set up in Kenya where the elections will be delayed. They've been suspended, and this is because the pictures were not right. And remember that there is the case of that, these two counties do not have incumbencies at the moment, which means that Governor Joho and Governor Paranya have served their 2 full terms. What's the implication of that? How do you manage that transition that is going to be at those 2 counties, that is in Kakamega and Mombasa? And also the role of legislators. This came out today, and this has got to do with the national government constituency development fund being declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. So there is a lot that is going there. But remember the interviews that have been there, preparedness all around the country, and also for you to understand the process and the jargon that is used in the elections. So we will be taking you through all of that, the profiles of the people who are vying for different positions all across the country, plus also the interesting case of Kericho, where 1 vote will not be cast because there is somebody who's been elected unopposed, and this is the woman member of the National Assembly from Kericho County. So it's an election that has got all kinds of dynamics around it, and it will push the limits of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 to the edge. Ben.
And we will continue this conversation until the polls open up. And just to have a feel of what a lot has transpired today, as Wahome has talked about, is that Mombasa and Kakamega will not seeking their governors yet until IEBC gazettes yet another day, because they talked about a few hitches here and there. And perhaps to start with you, Wahome, you've brought about a very good issue, is that these 2 counties the governors are already done with their 2 terms. And the IBC will have, of course, to check its calendar, to check how this election goes today before they gazette yet another day to have an opportunity for Mombasa and Kakamega to have new governors.
Not forgetting Pokot South as well?
Yes. Let's look at the governors first.
Well, for the case of the governors is, unlike the members of the National Assembly, where you can serve for a very long time. For example, we have somebody like, the Honorable Jimmy Angweni, who served for 26 years plus. The Constitution, if you look at that section on devolution, I think Article 180, I will be taking a look at it later and looking at the implications, is that once you serve 2 terms, then that's the case. And these are some of the counties where, Kenya Decides was, KBC went to Kakamega for Kenya Decides because Governor Oparanya has served these 2 terms. And when the Right Honorable Raila Odinga was being unveiled as the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party presidential candidate, it stood out that he mentioned a few names who are going to serve in his proposed, in a cabinet list that he had proposed. And the 2 were Governor Joho of Mombasa as Cabinet Secretary for Lands and Governor Oparanya as the Cabinet Secretary for the Treasury. So it creates a scenario where the leadership, where the transition, which is mandatory, it was going to happen with or without the hitch with the ballot papers. It was going to happen. And the scenario is if Governor Joho leaves office, his county executive leave office the same day. So that is what is in the law. So this is a scenario that hasn't happened before. It's the first time that we're having transitions due to the expiry of incumbencies and in these 2 counties. So it's a full test of the laws of the land and how this is going to be managed. That is one thing that, I know our editorial team is working around to get the right people to bring this conversation, but it's one that's going to go on as they vote for the other 5 office bearers at different levels.
But
yes, and it's a good thing that Wahome has touched on, because these 2 counties they're forming one of the county. They are some of the counties with the largest number of voters, and they are perceived, based on the 2017 election, they are perceived to be ODM stronghold. And I can tell you for free is that looking at the social media, there are all sorts of comments, and some people are talking about this is politics or IBC. You should have prepared well.
You should have known better.
It happens. You should have known better. And why not suspend the whole election for the 2 counties? Basically, there's a lot if you peruse social media.
Exactly. I mean, and just as you talk about, those counties that were perceived, and this was not in 2017, but 2013, as well as 2017 elections, perceived as the strongholds for the former premier. I mean, when you just look specifically at Kakamega alone, it's actually county number 4 with highest number of voters. This is after Nairobi, Kiambu, and then Nakuru. Then we have Kakamega with slightly above 884,000 voters. And over time, we have seen these counties largely vote in favor of Raila Odinga. So that's why you're saying that when you look at the socials, I mean, there's a lot of conversation in respect to just basically what was IEBC doing, why the loopholes. Yes, I understand that they have said that the grease farm is going to shoulder all the expenses. But again, the question one is asking is that just on the D-Day or just hours to the election, this is when you're realizing that, wait a minute, the pictures do not tally with the actual pictures. The names actually have a problem with that. And then, the question that also is being provided is that which names did you actually send to the grease farm that they had to mistake the name? So there's really a lot of questions being, coming forth. And the way you're saying is that why then don't suspend the entire elections of all the 6 elective seats in this particular counties, such that you're only postponing the elections of the governors? I mean, do even Kenyans understand that what IBC is saying, that when it comes to governors only, you wouldn't vote? Because again, remember, these names are already on that ballot. So then how do you go about it? So I feel like there's a lot that needs to be talked about, and also what this means. Also, given the fact that IEBC hasn't really quite put a date as to when the elections of these two or these 4 areas will be conducted. We're just awaiting a Gazette notice. So again, also, what does this mean in terms of anxiety of Kenyans in these 2 areas? It's quite.
And it's true, you have really brought about something quite interesting, is that the logistical nightmares.
Yeah.
Let alone that the Greece farm has talked about we will shoulder all the cost. But looking at the logistic itself, there are some people who have already traveled so that they may cast their ballot and
in
make
those
a difference in those areas. So at the end of the day, it's not just a matter of shouldering the cost or the logistics that come with elections. We have seen even ward elections being a nightmare. What about the gubernatorial, the whole county? How much more?
The top county job.
Well, I'll simply say it this way. I'm coming into this election. Basically, moving from one point to another. What I did is I brought out, tried to go through all that is happening. Basically, what we are talking about when you think of terms of office and the durations and the constitutional timelines, is that the IEBC does not want to risk, for example, delaying the election of the members of the county assembly. Their term is tied in law. From the day they were sworn in, their term is 5 years. So it's this lacuna of leadership that is a risk for them. Because in the case of the absence of a governor, then you can have a county speaker who would be acting as a governor. So there is that provision that may protect the counties of Mombasa and Kakamega before the main election comes in. But you cannot postpone all it would be risky and a very expensive venture, not just for the voter, but also for the state, which would have to fund these elections for these 2 gubernatorial candidates. The only other thing that we'd like to find out is now, with the suspension, are they allowed to speak again? 3 days ago, they were not allowed to campaign at all.
Exactly.
After the 6th, the moment it hit 11:59 p.m. on the 6th, they could not speak.
It was a done deal.
It was done.
Yes.
Now, what kind of space has been opened after tomorrow? Or after today? So those are the things that we need to look about, such that as this electoral process is going on, then the gubernatorial candidates and their running mates then do not create a scenario where there is, where for the Senate, for the senators, county assemblies, national assembly, woman member of the national assembly from the 2 counties, those elections are not interfered with, and also importantly, the presidential election. So it's the entire process that comes into play, and again, every election in this country after the 2010 constitution brings out a new issue in our governance and how we manage the entire process, and voting day and how we respond after voting day.
And it's true, because what we are having, because IEBC, it was a political shocker for actually a lot of, for both sides, or even for all the parties hearing that we have to postpone. But there's something that I'm quite sure you will find people in court either seeking some interpretation in regards to what happened today, or even petitioning either the courts either to take action on IBC or the Greece Park. You will see something happen. But talking of the courts, Wahome, today we also had a very significant ruling from the Court of Appeal.
Exactly.
The Court of Appeal talked about we are not going to give stay orders in regards to the High Court decision of last week on Thursday, where the High Court talked about the manual voter register will be used in sync with the biometrics. But now the Court of Appeal has talked about, pending the hearing of the petition by the Court of Appeal, well, the manual voter register can only be used if only all the KIMS kit failed. This is something that is also likely to generate out of debate in the midst of an election.
And I was looking at the socials and I realized there's a bit of misinformation, or should I say there was lack of proper understanding, because when you look at the socials, Kenyans are saying that High Court has said that manual register is a no-no. But then you realize what exactly the High Court has said is that they won't be used in, what the Court of Appeal has said is that they won't be used in tandem, because ideally what the High Court had said is that we will be having the KIMS kit at the same time the manual register, such that when a voter gets to that polling station, they are identified by the KIMS kit, and then the name is struck off from the manual register, which is what the Court of Appeal has averted. So yes, the manual register will will still be present, but as a last resort. As you've said, the first thing that the moment you get there is the KIMS kit to be used. And IEBC has made provision for all your 10 fingers. So if the pinky fingers fails, they go to the ring finger, the mid finger, up until they've exhausted all your fingers. If that then fails, they move to the alphanumeric system, whereby you present your ID and they use your details to actually check if you're a registered voter or not. Then now, if all that fails, that's when now we go to the manual register. So it doesn't mean that it won't be there. It just means that it will be there, but as the last resort. So I mean, that's why we are here again, to just demystify some of these things for Kenyans to understand what exactly this meant.
And of course, we will be discussing this at length. Plus, we'll also be going to what IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati talked about in regards to the preparedness of this election, because that was the last presser before polls open at 6 a.m. this morning. But we have experts as well who will be joining us. Remember, we will be here until the first ballot as well are opened at about 6 a.m. But let's take a quick break, but we'll be back with experts to put things into perspective.
Now, before we go to the experts and just delve deeper into what we have in terms of our conversations, I just want to take you through what exactly we shall also be looking at this morning on the smart board. So this is basically what we shall be exploring today, just looking at the profiles of the various presidential candidates. This is just how 2017 looked like. We shall also be doing a lot of comparisons in respect to how elections were conducted in 2017, 2013, and also look at an overview of what to expect in this particular election. Remember that we have 4 presidential candidates, all of them sponsored by a party, which is not what we had in 2017, because at least in this particular elections, the previous election, we had 2 candidates who were independent. So this is what we shall be looking at, just looking at the comparisons therein. We shall also be exploring, their profiles as well. Look at the profiles of the candidates, the presidential candidates, as well as their running mates, and also what they bring to the table, and how all this is expected to just shift and change the voter patterns, particularly for these candidates. We shall also be exploring those senators again, just as we have been doing, those that are eyeing the top county job, and our key focus is trying to look at basically why the top county job. We shall also be looking at what exactly they did while they were serving in Senate. And we shall also be looking at how the voter patterns are looking like. Remember that oftentimes when you look at our election process, the party in which you are in and the region in which you are in also, to a large extent, influences the voter patterns. So that is also one of those things that we shall be looking at. Remember that so far we've explored what has been happening in Nairobi County. We've looked at Kiambu. Today we shall also be looking at what will be happening in Vihiga, Murang'a, as well as Meru counties, looking at these incumbent senators who are eyeing the top county jobs, who are seeking to outsit the incumbent governors, and also look at those that are seeking their second term as well. So that is also what we shall be looking at today. And again, one thing also is ethnic sub-tribes. What role do they play when it comes to voter patterns? That is the other thing that we shall be looking at. And lastly also will be this, what you are saying on the social media platforms. This is just what, hours to polls being opened. What exactly is Kenyans' feels in this particular elections? How are they really feeling about this election? Remember that also, again, we have had so much conversation surrounding the fact that this is an issue-based kind of elections, unlike how it were or how you've experienced particularly our previous elections. So that is also some of those things in which we shall be exploring. But before we get to all of that, Troy.
Yeah, and indeed, we will also be looking at how all this shape up the few hours before our general election. And before then, news just in is that Azimio presidential candidate Raila Odinga and Mama Ida will be voting at 10 a.m. at Kibera Primary School, and after that at 10:30 they will be addressing the media. Of course, they will be touching on that, and of course his running mate Martha Karua will be at Moguma Primary School at 6 a.m. and is expected to address the media at about 6:30 a.m. Wahome with all the details.
Well, thank you, Troy. And I would like to pick up one story, and this is a call for peace, and calls for peace have reverberated across the country as Kenyans head to the highly contested polls today. The messages have been dominated with caution that Kenya should not go back to the 2007 and 2008 post-election mayhem. The dark era in the country's history is one Faustin Wekesa and Regina Wambui know only too well, having lost their husbands in the skirmishes. Andrew Okore sat with the two women and now shares their concerns ahead of today's polls.
Nilikuwa nimeolewa na mtu kutoka Nyanza, ilifika mahali maisha ikuwa rahisi sababu kuna wakati mmoja watu walikuwa na feel wewe ni kama msaliti ama maybe umeolewa na msaliti, hakukuwa na ile amani.
Imenipea wasiwasi mpaka saa hii. Hata saa hii wakianza kusema mambo ya election, mwaka election, hata sikuwangi na amani kwa roho yangu.
On a Thursday evening of a chilly July, 45-year-old Regina Wambui is busy performing her evening chores in Nairobi's Nyayo high-rise estate. The 2007-2008 post-election violence led to the loss of her business she was running with her husband that left their life devastated.
So all of a sudden, duka ilikuja ikachomwa. So ile duka kuchomwa, alifeel ni kama life yake imekuja to a standstill. Nimejionea vurugu kitokea, nimejionea watu wakiaga, mambo makubwa yakifanyika, na mengine pia kiniadhiri mimi kama vile nimesema nimeolewa upande ule mwingine.
A few kilometers away in Kariobangi Estate, Faustin Wekesa, now 61, remembers the phone call she received on the fateful night that she was rendered a widow.
Nikaona watu wamejaa kwa barabara na wengine wanakimbia huko. Sasa nikashindwa ni nini? Nikasongelea karibu. Kusonga nikaona kwanza macho iliona huyo shemeji yangu kuja kuniangukia, ndugu yetu ameua, ndugu yangu ameuliwa. Nilifrendi saa hiyo vile walitoa hiyo mwili sikujua, mimi nilijipata niko hospitali.
Regina and Faustin's ordeals led them to come up with an organization dubbed Come Together for Widows to encourage women afflicted by violence, especially during elections.
Tunaleta on the table in the name of building peace in our community. Sababu ukiangalia hii mtaa umebeba kabila zote. So tunahakikisha hizi kabila zote mmejaribu kuzileta pamoja, mmefanya vitu ambazo zinaweza change the way of thinking ya wamama hapa hivi. Tusije tumika na wanasiasa ati sababu maybe ana feel niko pale kwa mlango sana, kujeni wapatie 100 ndio kusudi mvuruge mtu fulani.
Hiyo machafuko ya 2007 iliumiza wamama wengi na watoto wengi. Singependa nione mwenzangu pia ule ako na mzee aumie vile mimi niliumia.
Their efforts saw the organization hold a National Women Peace Conference at Kenyatta International Convention Center that brought together over 1,000 women from all the 47 counties.
But naweza shukuru Mungu, with the time tuliishi kucommunicate na haikuwa rahisi na kuomba ya kwamba peace will come to maybe to save our marriage, na peace ilikuja, na through that Nilosema, after peace, God blessed me with a baby girl, baby Hope, who is now Hope for Peace, and she's Hope Omboy Ochieng for peace in Kenya before and after election.
They called for tolerance during the elections.
And I decree and declare, may the peace of God reign in this country.
Whereas the election is a periodic event, the effects of electoral-related violence may last a lifetime. This calls for sobriety among Kenyans to ensure that lives are not irreparably damaged by such an episodic event.
Vote Kenya, vote peace.
With the fond of painful memories of the traumatizing events still imprinted in the deep souls of mothers affected by post-election violence, the country still has a big gap to fill in terms of implementing measures to support in protecting women and minorities during and after elections. Recur for Channel 1 in Nairobi.
As a corporation, we can't really re-emphasize how peace should prevail in these August polls and let Kenya and democracy be the biggest winners after today. Thank you indeed for that report, and that takes us to our discussion. And I'm joined by a policy and also a governance expert. We were with him yesterday and we looked at 2-3 things, and he's here today. And thank you indeed so much, Advice Mudalo, for making the time in the middle of the night.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for having me.
And straight to the discussion. Yesterday, IEBC Chair Wafula Chebukati announced something that we've never witnessed ever again. Just a few hours to the opening of the polls, we have experienced cancellation or suspension of some voting in some parts where Kenyans had, basically they were ready. People have traveled to exercise the democratic right, and they were expecting nothing but perfection from the commission.
Yeah, definitely. Just in your own words, everyone expects perfection from the commission. And it is sad that before we even get into the reality of it, we're already having a cancellation. I think this is happening for the very first time in the history of this republic. And of course, it speaks to also the level of preparedness that the IEBC had, because this also disillusions the voter. Because we have had so many people who have traveled all the way from different workstations to go and just be part and parcel of this election period. So it is, of course, they will have a lot of cost implications, because you're talking about a situation where you have someone who has traveled from Nairobi to Kakamega to go and exercise their democratic right. So you're telling this person that they will need to come back a second time for the same thing. But be that as it may, this is something that has already happened. But then we also would want to urge Kenyans not to be extremely disillusioned by this, not to really take it too far. Yes, it has happened. We hope that the IEBC will be able to correct this mistake quickly. We hope that this is not going to keep occurring and reoccurring. We hope that this is not a testament that we are then going to have a bit of issues with the election. This has happened. We take it positively. We believe that the IEBC is preparing better. We believe that they are sorting every mess out, and soon and very soon, Kenyans in Kakamega and Mombasa will have their democratic right to elect their governors.
Indeed, and of course, not Kakamega and Mombasa alone, also in Kacheliba and Pokot South, respectively, sure, which will have to wait for IEBC perhaps to have an audit of what exactly transpired, so that they may gazette another day. They are yet to mention or to talk about when we expect polls in these 4 parts. But all said and done, IEBC gave more or less a vote of confidence, and has been given by Kenyans. But I believe this is something that, looking at what some of the reactions by the leaders, some are not quite comfortable, and others are talking about IEBC. Guys, this is not what we expect the last minute. If you're talking about when all the ballot papers were here, this is not what we want. Something else that is still transpired is that we have witnessed some of the poor materials appearing in places miles and miles away, just to show you how exactly the Kriegler report talked about. We need to be ready for elections, even if it's a year. Actually, it's given a minimum of a year to the general polls. But this, Kenyans didn't expect this.
Of course, and that is why actually it speaks to why then we have the chair and the commissioners within a certain time frame. that within a certain time before we get to the polls, we must have the IEBC office in place. This is usually basically not just a formality, but this is to be able to avoid such kind of extremes. We expect that they should have been in office long enough for them to now handle these in quite a better manner. But again, of course, at such a time when the election is just about less than 12 hours away, of course there's anxiety. I remember people have been, the aspirants have been on the campaign trail all this time. And therefore, there is a bit of anxiety. Everybody is expecting different things, and everybody is way ready, and somebody has their agent sorted out. Like someone knows that now we have come to the tail end. So any kind of disruption into this process, of course, it will throw the country and the aspirants and the players and the different stakeholders into a bit of disarray. But what I'm saying is, we hope that this is not going to be a foresight of what is then going to happen going forward. We hope that, yes, it is something that is unfortunate and has happened at the start, but we want to take it positively that because it has happened at the start, therefore the IEBC has learned a quick lesson, and therefore you're not going to have such cases reoccur. Because in such a scenario, then it will be very sad, because Kenyans have waited for this for 5 years. Kenyans have remained extremely peaceful during the campaign period. Kenyans have been very ready to now go and exercise their democratic right. It is only fair from the IEBC that they have this as a very seamless process.
Yes, and Wahome on the other side, I can see him. He is preparing with the Constitution. Of course, we will be getting to him in about a minute or so to give us a feel of what exactly the Constitution says in regards to these terms. But advice, looking at the judiciary, and the electoral process in Kenya, we have tested the judiciary to depths that we have never imagined. And 2017 formed the basis for that, when for the first time ever in the region, and I believe in Africa, a presidential election was nullified. Other than that, we've sought constitutional interpretations in court. Are we likely to see some of these being challenged in court?
Definitely. We are going to have a lot of litigation in this process. One, for the fact that in 2017, for the very first time, just as you say, we had an election nullified by the courts. This gave a lot of a confidence within the political players that actually the court can be somewhere you can actually run to for relief even in the political process. So because that happened in 2017, we are going to expect that more people, because of the trust that people now have in the judiciary, we're going to have more people who are going to run to the courts, not just even for the presidential election, down from the members of county assembly to the MPs, the senators. We're going to have a lot of litigation in this process because there was a precedence that has been set, and this precedence raises the trust of the Kenyans in the judiciary, in our constitution, in our legal framework. So this is going to happen, but we also hope that again the courts would not be a stumbling block to the democracy of the country, so that they should be able to allow that democracy must be able to also prevail, and we must also have a country to run. No, sometimes again, in my own view, I feel sometimes again the litigation sometimes stops even the country from moving forward. So we hope there will be quite a balance between litigation, democracy, and the running of the country.
And I also do a lot of court reporting, and I'm quite sure we are going to be seeing a lot of these cases. Wahome, what exactly does the law talk about when it comes to the terms of governors? All the two governors, looking at Mombasa and Kakamega, have already done 2 terms. And something else that came up is that the two have already been promised jobs. If at all, Azimio will be able to take power. They had already been promised positions. And remember, a governor cannot just exit and leave without handing over to another elected governor. Mahome.
Well, Ben, I'll just go through some of the clauses, and this is, first of all, is the election of a county governor and a deputy county governor. And Article 187A says a county governor, a person shall not hold office as a county governor for more than 2 terms or as a deputy governor for more than 2 terms. So that is what it says about that. And what about in the case of a vacancy? This is Article 182(4). If a vacancy occurs in the office of county governor and that of deputy governor, or if the deputy county governor is unable to act, the Speaker of the County Assembly shall act as a county governor. Then comes another clause, and we're talking about county government during transition. And these are the cases of Kakamega and Mombasa. Governor Joho has served for 2 terms. Governor Oparanya has served for 2 terms. So this is what Article 198 says. While an election is being held to constitute a county assembly under this chapter, the executive committee of the county, as last constituted, remains competent to perform administrative functions until a new executive committee is constituted after the election. There is also a conundrum that comes with this, and this is all about the county assemblies, because it simply says that the county executive, and this is if a vacancy arises in the office of the county governor, the members of the county executive committee appointed under clause 2b, this is under clause 2b of Article 179, shall cease to hold office. So there is a balance between that takes care of the transition, which means that the Kakamega and Mombasa CECs, going by Article 198 of the Constitution, would basically take charge of those should the 2 incumbents get appointive positions that were announced about 2 months back.
I don't know whether we can at least during the course of this show, we can have a look at who are some of the governors who will be having jitters, because they have done everything. They have already done their campaigns and have lined up their agents, have lined up each and every aspect of the polls, but that will not be happening in the next couple of hours. And still at the courts, today the Court of Appeal declined to issue stay orders on the High Court decision that Thursday actually, that talked about the use of manual register. And the Azimio coalition were quite elated when the High Court did say that a manual voter register has to be there, only for that to be quashed by the Court of Appeal, which talked about, for now, unless it's the last resort, until and pending hearing and determination of that petition, which of course will be heard and determined way after the polls are done.
And you see that actually points to what I talked earlier about the thin line between litigation, democracy, and the running of the country. Because when you come up and when we are having such kind of issues right now, just a few hours to the election, you are bound to start raising temperatures in the country for no particular reason. And that will be now the courts actually raising the temperatures of the country. Because in as much as we must be able to operate within some legal dictates, it is only fair enough that some of these decisions come quite early, when there will be no anxiety and such kind of a thing. Because we can't stand to have this back and forth. Because now, what if for the status of the election tomorrow, I'm sure that the IEBC must have prepared sufficiently for this election as per the legal requirements that stood as at that time, where the manual register is supposed to be there, because that is what was gotten to. But now for there to be another decision that is just about 5 hours to the election time, that is generally causing panic and confusion in the country. So for me, I would feel that some of these issues we don't really need to go into them, because we have a country to run. At the end of the day, yes, there must be the independence of the judiciary. Yes, we must be able to operate by the dictates of the Constitution and the legal practice. But again, the country has to run smoothly. And none of these is supposed to replace the other. So in as much as we have to do this, the judiciary must also be able to help Kenyans and help in the other institutions ensure that the country is actually running seamlessly, despite the fact that we have to operate within the legal dictates.
And we can have a final say when it comes to the court, because still yesterday, lawyer Kibe Mungai and 11 petitioners, they were at the High Courts to file a petition seeking to stop, if the Deputy President and his running mate win, they want the swearing in to be post. Does this speak the volumes that how our democracy and our constitution is being put to test, so that we may strengthen our democracy?
It is actually true that we are actually pushing our constitution and our democracy actually to quite an age, to really be able to test and see to what extent can we be able to actually pull. But again, as we do that, both the Kenyans and the judiciary must be able to really help on that. We must be able to ensure that we do not do some things that will arise unnecessary issues. Because right now, people are going out to vote tomorrow. When they hear that somebody is in court already trying to block a swearing in that has not even been deemed to happen, you see, because of different interpretations, because nobody has the laxity of time to really explain to everybody, to every Kenyan, that this is actually within legal framework, and so it will be deemed to be political, even when it is not. So in as much as, yes, we must be able to move with the legalists, it is also important that judiciary helps us actually as a country be able to operate within a zone that will not be able to throw the country over the cliff. Because in as much as we must be we must stick to the judicial processes, the litigation, stick to the law, the constitution. But again, all this is useless if the country will have been thrown over the cliff. Because when we throw the country over the cliff, then when there is no country to run, then there will be no judiciary actually to even operate at that level.
Yes, and to perhaps something away from that is that let's just give it to them. They have done their best, looking at the timelines, looking at the challenges that IEBC had to go. And in the next 4 hours, to be precise, 5 hours,
yes,
we will be headed to the biggest election in Kenya yet. Yes, we have some positives.
And I agree that the judiciary has actually done, especially in terms of the judiciary being independent. We have seen the judiciary be independent quite a number of times. We have seen them come up with rulings that were very unexpected from time immemorial. So yes, there is what the judiciary has done right, and that is actually more than the others. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying that the judiciary is actually doing wrong. What I'm saying is that despite the fact that we must have these legal processes, the judiciary must also be able, remember the judiciary operates within this country. It is part and parcel of the government. No, the government is made up of the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. So judiciary is not an alien. It is part and parcel of the government. So the functioning and of the government must also be aided by the judiciary. The fact that the judiciary is independent does not make judiciary opposition to the government. The judiciary, the executive, and the legislature are actually government. So they must operate in tandem to ensure that there is the functionality of the country. The judiciary is not opposition to the government.
Yes, and of course we will be also looking into that a little bit deeper when it comes to how it has exercised its independence when it comes to the current government that is currently ending in a couple of days after we have sworn in a new president. But also that said, what are the take-ins or the good things that you can talk about when it comes to IEBC and the election preparedness? The last presser before the polls are open, Wafula Chebukati, of course, that was a shocker when it comes to some of the constituencies or some of the counties that will not be having some polls. But they have done quite well as an independent electoral and boundaries commission.
Mostly, you know, when you're in an election period, the best time for you to judge the performance of the body that is conducting the election is during and after the election. That is actually the best time for us to actually judge the capacity of whether, because all that the IEBC has actually been doing is preparing for the election, which in my view, I thought they have actually done very well. But again, you see, less than 5 hours to the election, we already are having 2 cancellations. So the best time for us to actually judge how good and how best the IEBC has been able to conduct themselves would be maybe from once we open the sessions from midday we'll be able to start knowing how good actually this has been done. But if we start right now to say that the IEBC has already done very well, then we might even give them laxity. I think we need the IEBC on top of the game now than ever before. So I don't think it would be prudent, and this is not the right time for us to raise a lot of accolades on the IEBC. This is the time for us to really expect from them, so that we start heaping accolades on them sometime 6 hours, 7 hours after we have opened the polls, after every Kenyan is going to the polling stations and they are finding their names, after the Kenyans are voting seamlessly, after the Kenyans are getting their voters' cards stamped in good time, after there is no commotion of people saying they are not in the register. At that time, we can be able to actually say that the IEBC has done so well. But for now, it's a wait-and-see game.
Yes, and we will be having a listen at what Chairman Wafula Chebukati had to say in his last presser before we head to the biggest election in Kenya just yet. And we will now, for a short break now, or breather, we go back to Doreen. What do you have for us, Doreen?
I mean, that's a very conjured discussion ongoing there, and particularly in respect to how IEBC is prepared. I mean, there's really a lot of conversations out here, and just looking at the developments that are coming up, particularly just 5-6 hours to the polls, and remember that also this is the last one that Chebukati is getting to conduct after he did, the 2017 and also this particular one. So looks like a time for him to redeem himself. Nonetheless, just away from there a bit, let's come to look at some of these profiles. Remember, as I told you earlier, this is part of what we shall be focusing on this morning, just trying to look at these senators that are eyeing the top county job, and we can perhaps begin with Vihiga County, which actually, as we speak right now, it falls within the 10 counties that are now being regarded as battlegrounds, including Trans Nzoia, Bungoma, Nakuru, as well as areas of Mandera. So this just falls within, those counties that are being regarded as battlegrounds. And of course, what just that simply means is that, looking at the various candidates that are already in existence, just simply means that a particular candidate that may still be enjoying support, but due to the efforts and the inroads made by various other candidates, this becomes an area whereby clearly all of them or both of them are battling to see who nets more votes in that particular county. So this one has become a battleground simply because of that, and also not forgetting the fact that the ANC party leader comes from this county, that is Musalia Mudavadi. Vihiga County is his home turf, and this particular county has not attracted any independent candidates. In fact, all of them, the 5 of them are being sponsored by a party, and whom we'll be focusing on is the incumbent senator, that is George Haniri, who is actually serving his second term as senator of Vihiga County. This is after he was elected to this particular seat by the ANC party in 2013, and also defended that seat in 2017, and obviously got it. So he is now seeking to become governor of Vihiga County, seeking to outseat the current governor, who is Wilbur Otichilo. And also we are seeing the first time Governor Akaranga, who is also still on this particular race. So this is also, just what we are seeing particularly in this county. And some of those things that we'll be exploring is whether sub-tribes would be, a key factor of influence when it comes to voting patterns in this particular county, and also look at how parties, perhaps could be an influence in the voting patterns of this county. So let's just quickly go to George Haniri, who is at least our main focus for now in respect to what we are exploring. This is the current senator of Vihiga County, and he began his politics quite early. In 1996, that is when he began his politics, and at this time, actually, for him to become the member of parliament of Hamisi constituency is after the death of his father. And so at that time, given the fact that also he regards the former President Moi as one of his political fathers, he's actually the one who pushed him to get into this particular seat. That time he was vying under the KANU ticket. That was the by-elections of 1996 after the demise of his father, and that's how he was able to get that seat. And he has been the member of parliament for Hamisi constituencies for quite a number of times. The 2000 and the 1997 elections still was able to get that particular seat, 2002 as well as 2007. And now remember that Hamisi constituencies, amongst the 5 constituencies in this particular county, actually has the majority of voters. And when you look at the number of times in which he has been able to just capture this particular seat, speaks a lot, given the fact that this is one of those constituencies amongst, the various that we have, such as the Vihiga constituency in this particular county. This one has quite a number of voters, so to speak. So that was in 2007 when he got that particular seat as a member of parliament. And slightly away from there, coming to 2013, that is when he vied for the position of senator, and again he was able to get that particular seat. In fact, in 2013 he vied under the UDP party, which is still the party that he is using to sponsor him to the position of governor. That is the United Democratic Party, and obviously was able to capture that seat. In 2017, still defended that seat now under the ANC party, and he was still able to get that seat. That was in 2017. Now, fast forward to 2022, he is seeking the position of governor in Vihiga County. And remember, even prior to him moving to UDP, he still was on the ANC party. But after Musalia Mudavadi, just went and threw his support to the deputy president, that is the UDA, together with the larger Kenya Kwanza faction, he defected from the party, that is ANC, citing the fact that he cannot be in support of that. And so that's when he moved to UDP. In fact, UDP is a party led by Cyrus Jirongo. And again, that is also, in the larger Azimio faction. Now, looking at the politics of this particular county, as I mentioned to you, the constituency in which, he served as MP for 3 terms or 4, this is that constituency with the highest number of voters. In fact, even prior to that, we had, the former National Assembly Speaker, that is Kenneth Marende, who was also in this race, as well as the Deputy Governor, that is Patrick Saisi, who was also in this particular race. But then they withdrew, dropped off the race, and Ken Marende went to support Wilbur Otichilo, who is the current governor of this county, as well as Saisi went to support Haniri. Now, this is how this one looks like. With the support of Kenneth Marende to Otichilo, then it's a boost for his gubernatorial race. Why? Because he comes from the larger Bunyore sub-tribe. Now, this is why I was telling you, we are going to also be looking at the fact that do sub-tribes and party affiliation going to be a key factor in terms of influencing the voter pattern in Vihiga County? This is why. Bunyore sub-tribe is actually the second largest sub-tribe in terms of voter outcome in this county. This is after Maragoli sub-tribe. So when he dropped his bid, it was a boost for him because this would have split the Bunyore vote. When Patrick Saisi, who is the incumbent deputy governor, again threw away his bid and went to support Haniri, this was also a boost for him because he is from the Tiriki sub-tribe, which again would have equally split the votes for these two candidates, that is Haniri as well as Saisi. So throwing his weight to him is a boost for him in that regard. When you come to constituencies, he is coming from the constituencies with the largest majority of voters. Will that play a key role? Again, knowing fully well that he has been member of parliament for a while. When you go back to Otichilo, who is the incumbent governor, he has also been an MP for Emuhaya constituency, which is again also a constituency in this particular county in the that was around 2007, 2008. So also when you look at that, will that also play a key factor in terms of voters? Because again, going by what most pundits have said is that also largely what brought Otichilo to, to that position of governor in 2017 was the fact that he went and chose Saisi, who was from the Tiriki tribe. And that particular tribe, when you look at the 2017 general election, it actually formed the largest tribe or constituencies with the majority of undecided voters. So those undecided voters then swung their votes in now what we call the swing votes. Because oftentimes when you talk about swing votes, you're largely talking about areas whereby there's a majority of undecided voters, and anything can shift that decision that they haven't yet decided. So by having him as a running mate was able to now shift those votes to his side. Now, he does not have him as a running mate, so to speak, because he has dropped his bid and has gone to support Haniri. What does that mean in respect to that? Again, look at this on the other side, party affiliations. We are talking about him coming from the United Democratic Party, a party of Cyrus Jirongo, which is in the larger Azimio faction. We are looking at Otishilo again, also coming from that is the ODM party, still inside the Azimio faction. Away from that, we are also having a candidate who is coming from the ANC party. That is Alfred Agoi, using the ANC party. And as I have told you that, you know, this is also the home turf of the Musalia Mudavadi there, who again is the leader of ANC party. So what are we likely to see in this particular elections? Are we likely to see party affiliations taking a big influence in respect to the voting patterns of this? Are we likely to see sub-tribes? Are we likely to see, you know, just in terms of sort of like throwing weight or support simply because of the running mate that you have chosen? So these are some of the things that, you know, will be playing out in this particular elections. Again, knowing fully well that also when you go by what polls have been saying, they put Otishilo on the lead. We have talked so much about opinion polls and what exactly they mean, whether to believe them or not to believe them. So again, today, which is the August of 9th, from 6 a.m. when elections and poll stations are opened, these are also some of the things that we'll be trying to see as well as explore. So again, also key factors are being talked about in this county in terms of areas to address and look at. There's the factors to do with issues of unemployment, cost of living coming to the fore, some of these issues being profiled, how to grow industries as well. And also when you look at what the incumbent governor said is that he has said that he has actually performed up to 70% since when he was elected as governor of Vihiga County. But that is not quite what the senator, who is also equally eyeing this seat, is saying, because, well, Haniri says that that is not basically what, you know, the incumbent governor has done. In fact, he is saying that because of him not performing as to par and as, you know, as to what was expected of him, then he does not deserve that particular seat. But just before we get to the other areas, I'd like to bring our guest on this one, because I feel like it's quite one of those interesting things to look at when you look at matters to do with sub-tribes, ethnic groups, or party affiliations. I mean, when you look at these elections, the 2022 elections, we have really largely discussed about it being an issue-based, and we have had so much conversation surrounding the fact that this elections is largely tied to what a candidate, being a presidential candidate, you know, a gubernatorial candidate, an MP, are trying to look at basically what they're bringing to the table in respect to the kind of issues they're seeking to address. Could be unemployment, could be cost of living, you name it. But when we look at this area, advice, basically, what would your assessment be? Are we likely to see the issue of tribes coming into play in terms of whom to elect as governor? Are we likely to see issue of party affiliations coming into play? What's your general assessment?
I think generally both of those issues actually come into play, especially when we talk about the politics of Western Kenya. Then the clanism actually plays quite a big role. And just the way you've actually rightfully put it the clans in Vihiga, the Maragoli, the Tiriki, it is one thing to be a candidate, it's another thing to have all these sub-clans put into one basket of votes. And most of what is the political calculation right now of most of the gubernatorial candidates is actually getting that vote of those different sub-tribes. Yes, there is a party affiliation also plays some part. Of course, what would be perceived to be the dominant party in Vihiga would be perceived to be the ANC because of the fact that Musalia Mudavadi is the party leader. But that has always been. But again, Vihiga has not always operated in that manner. Today, Vihiga's sitting governor is actually ODM. So yes, there will be the party affiliation per se. But again, ODM is quite strong in Vihiga. Actually, Vihiga, there is it's a very complicated scenario because ODM is quite strong. The fact that Mudavadi comes from Vihiga makes ANC not a party you can actually wish away. And the fact that Haniri has been a two-term senator and a two-term member of parliament makes him quite a strong candidate. So the fact that he's actually on a UDP ticket, despite the fact that the party might not be as strong, but the candidate is actually very strong. So in Vihiga is a wait and see scenario, because anyone can actually carry the day as the politics stands today in Vihiga County.
And just allow me to explore this a bit, because as you're saying that yes, we are agreeing that sub-tribe or tribes could play a big role, then where does it put us as a country? Like I said, we have largely talked about, at least for this particular elections, being largely an issue-based elections. So if we keep going back to our tribe, this is my tribe, this is my person, so this largely influences how I vote, where does this leave issues?
I think we also have to decipher. There is this perception also that for us to discuss issues, we must run away from our identity. I don't believe there is any problem with people identifying from where they come from. And there is actually no problem with people wishing and that their people also get into the leadership. I don't find it wrong, because power games are about really trying to ensure that you get to be in control of the resources. What would be the problem is if our identity creates aggression between us. I think that is where the problem comes in. So the fact that the sub-tribes, there is keenness on the sub-tribes, does not necessarily mean we are running away from the agenda per se. So let the people sell their agenda, but also it is also not a very bad thing when people say that, you know what, why can't this sub-tribe also lead, then the other sub-tribe also lead. It is quite just a balance of power that everyone gets an opportunity at the end of the day. That's why we say, even for governors and whatever, we say it's 2 terms and then you go. It doesn't matter how good you are, you have to give it up to someone else. So I think it gives opportunity for people to just also revolve the leadership. But the unfortunate reality is that when you come down in this election now to some of those gubernatorial elections, the issues are not very heavy, but then the tribes are very heavy and the sub-clans are very heavy, which is quite not the case with the presidential election, at least for the 2022 election. I think for the first time in Kenya, there is a very heavy debate on issues than necessarily where candidates are actually coming from. We have not seen that tribal card play along so much in this election, which is a very good thing and a very good step for our democracy going forward. And I tend to think with time, it's going to cascade. By the next election, soon and very soon, we'll start having MCAs launching manifestos on very big, and KBC will be required to cover that live when my friend Maina Karobia will be running for MCA of Nairobi City County.
Well said. I mean, Troy, just allow me to do this last one, because I also need to pick your mind on this one, advice. When you look particularly also on on this area, we are seeing both of the 2 main front runners, the ODM candidate as well as the UDP candidate. They've equally served as members of parliament. When you look at Haniri, 4 times, 1996, 97, 2002, and 2007, actually as MP in what I should say, the largest constituency in Vihiga County, and served all this while. When you look at Otichilo, again, also served as a MP in Emuhaya. Would this be a factor? Are they things that perhaps could be considered even when it comes to voting for either of them?
Definitely. The fact that you've served as a member of parliament, when you are going higher to a seat that requires the entire constituency, of course, your constituency now, first of all, becomes where you served as a member of parliament. So everyone would want to use that as their first stronghold.
Is it like they believe in you now?
Apart from you and your clan, you would want to believe that you and the people you've served, those people have already tested your leadership. So it is mostly what is supposed to be obvious, that the first person within the county who will believe in you is the ones you've led first. So they would be your stronghold first. So the one who has led more people, and even if the 2 of you have been members of parliament, the perception is that the one whose constituency had a larger number of voters stands to have quite a head start from the other one. Of course, sometimes it doesn't really cascade down to the results of the election, but in terms of political arithmetic, it actually works. That first of all, your constituency, your serving constituency would be your first block. Then your clan would be your second block, before we cascade down to the issues and what you have to tell the people.
Okay.
So yes, being an MP is quite a head start for those who have actually served as members of parliament while running for governor.
Clearly, this is also the county to watch. Troy.
Indeed, and of course, it's not the only county that we will be checking out. We have adequate time to have a look at 2 or 3 more counties, as well as engaging the panelists to see exactly where we are just a few hours to poll opening. Remember, this is KBC Kenya Decides, where we're giving you a 24-hour coverage, 360 degrees of nothing but the best coverage pre and post election. We will be here until the final day when the final results are announced. But being a few hours to the election, IEBC also, via their chairman Wafula Chebukati, as a daily occurrence, where he has been giving since last week on Monday, day-by-day account of where IEBC is on election preparedness. And yesterday was no exception. That's where he told us more about the 2 counties that the gubernatorial seats will not be vied for this morning, but will be gazetted on a different date. But because it forms a bit of what we are discussing, let's first of all hear what IEBC Chair Wafula Chebukati had to say a few hours to the general polls.
24 hours from now, actually much less than 24 hours, Kenya will hold its 12th general election since independence and its 7th since the introduction of multi-party democracy in 1992. And this will be the 3rd general election to be held under the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Kenya is also on the verge of transition of power through an election for its 5th president. This momentous occasion will be in the hands of 22,120,458 registered voters. Kenyans will be voting for 16,105 candidates who are vying for a total of 1,879 elective positions. On this momentous day in our nation, the Commission is committed more than ever to a free, fair and credible general election, and all preparations are in place to ensure that we deliver on our constitutional mandate. Our fellow Kenyans, allow me to update you on the state of readiness for the elections. As things stand right now, we are ready for the elections. The Commission has deployed both strategic materials such as ballot papers and KIMS kits, and non-strategic materials to all the 46,229 polling stations across the country. We, however, wish to inform the country that despite the high level of preparedness, ballot papers for the following elective positions were noted to have errors. Number 1, ballot papers for Kakamega County Governor position have wrong gubernatorial candidates' pictures and their details printed on them. 2, ballot papers for Mombasa County Governor position have wrong gubernatorial candidates' pictures and their details printed on them. 3, ballot papers for Kachliba constituency have wrong member of National Assembly candidates' pictures and their details printed on them. 4, ballot papers for Pokot South constituency have wrong member of National Assembly candidates' pictures and details printed on them. As a result, elections for the respective positions have been suspended to a later date that will be announced through a Gazette notice. Elections for those 4 elective positions have been suspended to a date to be announced through a Gazette notice. I repeat that elections for the gubernatorial seat, Kakamega County gubernatorial seat, Mombasa County, Kachiliba constituency, member of National Assembly, Pokot South constituency, member of National Assembly. Elections have been suspended for those 4 elective positions, and the date will be announced through a Gazette notice. Ballot papers for the following areas were wrongly routed. Ballot paper pallets for County Assembly ward belonging to Fafi constituency were erroneously sent to Chuka Egambe Ngombe in Tharaka Nithi County. Ballot papers pallets for County Assembly ward belonging to Mua in Machakos County were erroneously sent to Kuresoi constituency, Nakuru County. Ballot paper box belonging to Tiati County women, member of National Assembly in Baringo County, were erroneously sent to Lamu County. The Commission has since rerouted the ballot paper pellets to their rightful places using air transport contracted to facilitate such emergencies. I also wish to bring to your attention an incident that happened this morning in Moyale constituency, Marsabit County, where a KIMS kit for Orani Primary School polling station code number 0100 450 226 07102 was reported missing. The KIMS kit code is 0100 450 226 07102 was reported missing. The loss was discovered when the KIMS kits were being charged before deployment to the polling stations. The incident has been reported to Moyale Police Station and investigations into the loss is ongoing. The Commission has blacklisted and replaced the missing KIMS kit. Any activity or data that may originate from the missing kit will be flagged and isolated from the system. The kit will not be useful to anyone. Whoever has stolen it should know that it will not be useful to them because it has been blacklisted. The Commission has also deployed 660 temporary staff towards the success of the 9th August general election. This includes presiding officers, deputy presiding officers, poll clerks, and security. I wish to take this opportunity to thank the team, my vice chair, commissioners, CEO, and the entire staff of the IEBC who have worked tirelessly to ensure that tomorrow's election is a success. I salute the fellow returning officers across the country who I know have not been sleeping, and from today they'll have sleepless nights until the results are announced in the counties and constituencies across the country. I call upon all our temporary poll officials to discharge their duties with utmost integrity and commitment to serve our country, Kenya. However, as a commission, we have received information that 5 presiding officers and 2 clerks in Diwa constituency were allegedly caught by members of the public in a homestead of an associate of a contestant, what was believed to be a meeting to plan or influence the outcome of elections. Allegedly so. 4 of the poll officials were arrested and recorded statements at Diwa police station, and as a result, the returning officer from Diwa constituency has dismissed the said 4 officials and replaced them with others. In Webuye East, Bungoma County, 2 deputy presiding officers were allegedly in a meeting with a candidate. The 2 have since been arrested and dismissed from duty and replaced with others. In Webuye West, Bungoma County, a presiding officer allegedly attended a meeting convened by a candidate in a hotel within Matete sub-county, Kakamega County. The presiding officer has been dismissed from duty and replaced. The Commission has also been informed of destruction of election materials in Chuka Igamba Ngombe, which were being transported from the IBC warehouse in Chuka to Tharaka. We have since deployed our officers to liaise with the local police to review the incident, and we shall give a report on that. The Commission takes great exception of polling officials who contravene the code of conduct for poll officials and will not hesitate to take stern action against any official found to be in breach of the Code of Conduct and Election Offences Act. On issues of security, the Commission has partnered with the National Police Service, and we have trained and deployed over 150,000 police officers, and we confirm that there will be 2 officers per polling station throughout the country when the polls commence tomorrow. These officers are already being deployed today with the polling officials to the respective polling stations. However, on matters security, we have 2 incidents that we wish to inform the country about in Turkana and Mandera. In Turkana County, bandits attacked and burned down homes in a village within Kapedo, Naipeiton ward, and displaced populations expected to vote in 3 polling stations. The returning officer, in consultation with the security team and stakeholders, has recommended that the polling station be conducted in the nearby polling center, so arrangements will be done and the voters will be informed accordingly where they'll be polling in that particular area. In Mandera County, a known number of people burned down 2 classrooms in Haniri Primary School, which is a gazetted polling station, in Kalalio Ward in Mandera East constituency. Security has been beefed up and polling will proceed as planned with the remaining part of the buildings which has not been affected. The Commission has set up fully-fledged call center where poll officials and the general public can call a toll-free number to make inquiries and report incidents related to the 2022 general elections. Just we should remind the public that the toll-free numbers are 1543 and 1544. And we encourage Kenyans to make good use of these numbers for purposes of seeking information from the Commission on incidents happening on the ground. We also have this media center where we give media briefings like we are doing today, and this will continue on a very regular basis as we get into the elections tomorrow. I just want to confirm that the Commission has accredited a total of 4,850 local and international journalists to ensure free flow of information and accurate reporting of election results to the public. The Commission has already shared with the media, political parties, observers, the secure formats and templates in which results will be shared to enable them integrate with the results transmission system in order to receive, process, tally accurate results as they are received by the Commission. We call upon the media to remain true to their role of providing comprehensive and objective coverage of the elections as possible, especially in relaying or reporting results. The media can, of course, tally results, as we have said, but not declare the winners. I want to say a few things about activities of polling tomorrow. All polling stations will open on 9th August 2022 at 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. Where there's a delay in opening or interruption in voting at a polling station, the presiding officer shall extend hours of polling by the amount of time lost. Voters who will be on the queue at the time of closing the polling station will be allowed to vote. The Commission will ensure that every registered Kenyan voter gets a chance to exercise their right to vote for their preferred candidate. To achieve this, the Commission has put legal, technological and administrative structures in place to ensure that all voters have an improved voter experience as they cast their vote. As part of its mandate, the Commission has accredited a total of 120,700 731 domestic and international observers and monitors, out of which 50,231 are observers, 70,500 are monitors, and they come from 872 organizations. That is 795 domestic observer organizations and 77 international observer organizations. Also want to say something about our results transmission system. The Commission has put in place an election results management framework, ERMF, that provides the workflow of results from the polling station to the constituency and national tallying center in accordance with the Elections Act and regulations. The system allows the presiding results transmission system application after the close of polling. The presiding officer shall be able to capture and transmit the image of the A series, that's for presidential 34A series form. In transmitting the results transmission system only sends the A series results form, which has a QR code once. It cannot transmit more than once. Persons authorized to be at the polling station include media, observers, polling station agents who will be allowed to take an image of the original results from 34A. Polling station agents of presidential candidates will be issued with a carbonated copy of the results from 34A. The results announced at the polling station will be final. At tallying centers, proper planning and management of tallying centers plays a central role in the conduct of credible election, for it is at the tallying center where results are collected and declared for respective positions. And for strict avoidance of doubt, let me say the following, that the Commission has 3 levels of tallying centers, namely constituency tallying center, county tallying centers, and national tallying center right here at Bomas. So at the polling station, there will be counting and filling of result forms. At constituency tallying center, tallying and declaration of the member of National Assembly, member of County Assembly, collation of presidential, gubernatorial, and senatorial, and Women Assembly, member of Parliament results. So tallying and declaration of member of National Assembly, member of County Assembly is done at constituency, but also at constituency there's collation of presidential results, gubernatorial results, senatorial results, and Woman member of National Assembly results. At the county tallying center, we have the final tallying and declaration of gubernatorial and senatorial and Woman member of National Assembly, Woman member of National Assembly results. So those are declared at the county tallying center. It's the final tallying and declaration of presidential results from all the polling stations. So let me assure you that at the National Tallying Center, which I'm in charge of as the National Returning Officer, we are ready to undertake this exercise, and we have put everything in place to make it happen. And I just want to thank all who have been involved in these processes, all stakeholders who have worked with us to prepare for this general election. I also want to finally say something to the Kenyan voters. In closing, let us now cast our eyes to focus to the patriotic duty that lies before us, the opportunity to express our voices through the ballot. To this end, I'm calling upon every registered Kenyan voter, both here in Kenya and in the diaspora, to show up to their respective polling stations to exercise their democratic right. At this moment in time, let us draw inspiration from the 2010 Constitution that vests all sovereign power to the people of Kenya, who may exercise it either directly or through their elected representatives. Let us collectively rise up and show the world that Kenya is a vibrant democracy. On our part as a commission, we shall ensure that every vote counts, because that we shall ensure to count every vote, because every vote counts. So for Kenyans, this is our time, our moment to make it happen. Before I close this afternoon, we received information from our lawyers in the Court of Appeal that the Court of Appeal has stayed the judgment of the High Court, which directed the Commission to cross out the register as a complementary to the KIMS kits. Remember, the Court of Appeal has directed that we follow the guidelines given by the Court of Appeal in the case of NASA versus EBC, which gave guidelines that the Commission followed as we prepared for this election. And so today the court has stayed the High Court order which directed that in addition to following the guidelines of using the fiscal register as a last resort if the KIMS kits fails, the High Court had directed that we also cross the register at the time of verification. So the Commission shall stand guided by the orders of the Court of Appeal this afternoon, and we have accordingly directed our staff, who had been adequately trained, to now follow the procedure as laid down by the Court of Appeal, that they'll have the fiscal register with them and will only use it if all the KIMS kits fail in that particular polling station. So thank you very much. That's our brief this afternoon. As I said, we shall engage on more briefings as and when any situation arises. Thank you.
That is IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati and the National Returning Officer, and especially for the presidential election. They're giving us a brief of what to expect just 4 hours and 16 minutes from now, earlier on when he talked to the media. And that is not the only presser that we had. We also had an exclusive one, of which Wahome will be coming with a little bit later. But that, about 20-30 minutes, but it was full of a lot of things actually were covered in that presser. Matter security, matters challenges, and that is where actually he basically formed the basis of all this conversation we are having here in terms of election preparedness. Well, that also forms our discussion, and I'm also fortifying this discussion with another governance and leadership expert, Maina Karobia. Karibu sana, bro.
Thank you, Troy.
And thank you so much for making time. It's 2 in the a.m.
Yes.
Some people are asleep, but as I can see, if you browse social media, people have started queuing.
Yes.
Anyway, what do you make of that report? Because in that report, 30 minutes, he had basically told us everything we need to know, both the good side and some challenges that they have had.
Troy, to a great extent, I must commend IBC for timely dissemination of information to the public. I think to that extent, in terms of openness of the process, IBC have really tried. What I would urge is that the members of the public, the political stakeholders, to be patient with the process, just do what is right. Remember that we are in a democratic nation, and there is more to just voting. We have a nation to protect. I think unlike other electoral processes in our country, this has been a very peaceful process, and I know and I hope that IBC is going to deliver justice to the electoral process that we are having in our nation in this particular period. The campaigns have been peaceful. I call upon the members of the public and also political actors to also have the actual voting process be as peaceful as the campaigns have been.
Indeed. And Maina, looking at what IEBC chair talked about is something that we've never realized or had in the previous election, talking about the third under the new constitution dispensation, but it was so full of a lot of things that are going to be challenged, even maybe at the court. The Mombasa one and the Kakamega made heavyweight news, and some of the two front leading contenders, both the UDA side or the Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, had a reaction. on the suspension of the gubernatorial election in Mombasa. We'll be getting... Okay, my director tells me that it is ready. Let's hear what they had to say in regards to IEBC announcement.
I'm urging all Mombasa residents to show up at the ballot box tomorrow so that we are able to take this regime of projects.
Tunaomba tu wananchi wasivunjike moyo, watoke kwa wingi sana. Watoke kwa wingi, tupige kura kama vile tutapigia governor. So sisi bado hatujavunjika moyo.
Wasihi kwanza wafuasi wetu wote wajitokeze kwa nguvu. Mimi mwenyewe binafsi niko katika uwanja kesho, ndugu yangu Thoya, na sote tutakuwa katika uwanja kama ambao sisi wenyewe tuko katika ballot, hata kama IEBC wameamua.
Maina, perhaps that could be a good entry point, Maina, in regards to what those two have talked about and the suspension of the gubernatorial seat election that was supposed to be due in a few hours.
Troy, I think from where I sit, I would want to look at it from two angles. The first angle is on the issue of intention. What is the intention of IEBC with the suspension of Kakamega and Mombasa gubernatorial seats, plus another one from a parliamentary seat in West Pokot? The intention is to deliver justice and to ensure that indeed the votes that will be casted for those elections or for those seats really counts. I don't think, Troy, people just want to just elect leaders. The greater objective of this election is to just have the voices of the people heard and also have the right leaders. We don't want to have a process where you just elect a leader for the sake of achieving the purpose of electing a leader. We want a process that delivers credible and right leaders that the people want. Because we are in a democratic nation, we want to have a process that delivers the will of the people. So I think to that extent, if the intention of the IEBC is to deliver a credible process, we can take as many days and months as possible for us to have that will achieved. And if the people voice will be counted or will be heard after suspension of those seats, even after 1 year, I wouldn't mind, as long as the people get the leaders that they want and they deserve, and have their services or have the kind of leaders that they deserve as a people in those jurisdictions.
Indeed. And back to you, advice. Looking at what IEBC chair talked about there, he urged media to be objective. And I'm talking about what happened Tharakanidi, where we saw some images on social media, and even some mainstream media did report that election materials have been spoiled, and IEBC chair was very categorical that nothing of essence was destroyed. All he said, it was more or less like a mishap, but he assured that media, we should be very objective in what we are talking about. But away from that, there are some security challenges, and especially in some of the counties that we have curfew. We have some of the West Pokot, Baringo. We have experienced some pockets of violence in the last couple of days. And not only that, some of the people who live in these places, called the marginalized areas, they're saying that what we have now in this election, more or less we can call it a Passover, because after this election, the ballot papers and all the election materials will get here, but when we'll be asking for food, when we'll be asking for good leadership, well, it will be just that, the Passover.
Yeah, of course, partly I would agree with them, and it's usually not a very good thing when fellow Kenyans have the complaint of not receiving government services. but yet they can be able to receive the ballot papers. But again, that is the whole essence why we have an election, so that you can get a government that cares about you into office. That is one element that you must be able to get very clearly, that the reason why we are having this election is so that they have this chance to correct the ills. This is a chance now they have to be able to say, for us to be able to be taken care of in the best way possible, let us then have this leader into the office. So they should not be able to use that as an excuse to then boycott the elections, but it should be actually something that encourages them more to actually participate in the election, because it is an election that actually is about them, is about their decisions. And then when you talk about what the chairman said about the media, I think I couldn't emphasize that more, because as it stands now, the media as a tool is communicating with the entire country, and therefore every other person is only banking on the media to get what is happening where and at what time. So it's only fair enough that the media is quite objective, because the media is very strong. The media can be able to either lead the country the right way, or it can also actually push the country over the cliff. So it is actually important that the media takes quite a responsibility, that even in our dissemination of information as the media, it's important for you to actually weigh the information, ascertain the information before reporting that information. Let us not be able to have a lot of gutter press, because we have people who would manufacture a story just for the sake of getting sensational. It would be prudent that the media doesn't then run with stories that have been created just to sensationalize the country, to get the country heated up, and such kind of scenario. So I agree with the chairman of the IEBC when he talks about the responsibility of the media, because indeed in this kind of election, today, Troy, it's beyond one. Right now, and people are awake in their houses, and they are basically awake and they are alert with the media, because they're depending on us to be able to show them the direction, what is happening in the country. So a sense of responsibility from the media cannot be overemphasized.
Yeah, Wahome, you wanted to add something on that?
It's one of the things that has been picked up, and it's all about the IBC and looking at the integrity of the entire process that is there. Just by a straight count is that 11 officials who had been taken up as temporary staff by the IBC have been sacked, and we've got one returning officer, that is a person who's in charge of our constituency in Diwa, and 7 officers who under him, 2 deputy presiding officers in Webuye East and Webuye West. And for minor and for advice, I mean, you could delve into this and tell us about, the kind of association that these people who are running the elections are allowed and not allowed. We know they have got to associate with agents, and we saw from the by-elections that took place over the last 1 year, is that where if a candidate showed up and was not known to be basically an agent or anything else, the only other place that would be allowed that is during the tallying at the constituencies. Minor and advice, you could tell us about these decisions.
You see, the behavior of electoral official should be within the Election Act that is in place, and also the code of conduct that governs the electoral process according to the IEBC. And also the overarching document being the Constitution of Kenya. I don't see the reason as to why an electoral official can be meeting a candidate and leaving the other. The only engagement an electoral official should be having with the candidate is where he brings all candidates together for consultation purposes, and it must be within the premises of the Constitution of Kenya, the Electoral Act, and also the Code of Conduct upon which they have signed and taken an oath to. So anything that is outside those 3 documents that governs the electoral process, then it means there is malpractices that maybe this electoral official might be engaging in. And I commend the IBC for the swift action on these officials in those counties, so that it rings as a warning to every other electoral official, be it a clerk at the lower level, or even at the middle level, the constituency, the presiding officers, or the high ranking officials at the National Tallying Center level, so or the commissioner level. So I think what should be guiding this process are the documents that have been stated within the whole premises of the election. And the candidates have been briefed enough. There have been extensive engagement between the various political actors and the electoral officials. And that should be what is guiding our election. At this particular point, Wahome, anything that an electoral official is doing outside these documents that I've stated can be nothing but a spanner in the works of violence. And we need to take caution that Kenyans are at the lookout. I've been seeing the kind of statements that have been coming out of our neighbors, the Tanzania and Ugandans. They have been commending how we are conducting ourselves in terms of facilitating our elections. Any electoral official who is undermining our democracy or undermining our electoral process is in essence subverting our democracy. So I think we need to call these officials to order and get to know that they are not only serving the candidates, they are actually serving the whole country. A mistake or a blunder that is done in a constituency in Homa Bay is actually a blunder that will be done across the country. Because every country is watching, every county, every citizen is watching what is happening in the grassroots, irrespective of where you come from. So, as you have said, a mistake or a blunder might have taken place in Homa Bay, but that blunder is being discussed in a national TV as KBC, and KBC has been watched by somebody as far as Wajir. So, I think we need to be serious. All stakeholders need to understand that the eyes of Kenyans are on what we are doing in our humble premises, whether on the national TV, whether on the grassroots, or whether on the bigger premises of the talent center of IBC.
And of course, advice you can weigh in on the same, because IBC chair did something even more. He goes to the nitty-gritties, talking about a device that was being charged. Unfortunately, it got lost under unclear circumstances. He is ensuring that Kenyans know up to the minute, till we get to the polls, exactly what is happening. Transparency, perhaps?
Yeah, of course, one thing I agree with Maina Karobia is that the election officials at this time, they must be beyond reproach. They must not be able to give a chance to anybody to even imagine a doubt that they might not be actually neutral. At this time, it is the wrongest time ever for an election official to have a meeting with a candidate from whichever side, or even just phone conversations. There should be nothing that we can point at and say it makes us doubt their credibility. So one, the IEBC has actually done very well. One, to identify them, and two, to actually ensure that action has been taken with the immediacy that it deserves. And that should actually go to all the other election officials that we have, that they must be able to know that this country is actually in their hands as we speak today. The election of Kenyans, the democracy of Kenyans, the will of the people of Kenya to elect their leaders is purely in their hands, and therefore they must not be able to appear as though they may be able to be on one side or the other, because it will be the wrongest thing, basically, as I said before, for this country. So I agree that the IEBC has taken quite a stand, and the chairman of the IEBC has really demonstrated some leadership to some level by coming out clearly, explaining to Kenyans and making them know exactly what happened where. I think this also tries to ensure that nobody else, actually, no other election official goes that direction, because now they know that the buck stops with them, and if anything happens, then their bosses at the headquarters, the Chebukati, together with the other commissioners, are on top of the game. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And indeed, Wahome, looking at what we are expecting, a hive of activities, IEBC at the Bomas, although they were clear that there are people who are supposed to be at the Bomas of Kenya. I'm quite sure IEBC chair will be having a presser in the morning. I do remember, as I had alluded to earlier, is that the Azimio presidential candidate and the running mate will be having pressers quite early in the morning.
Well, Ben Trev, well, this is a process that we all see with all the people who are going for various offices, and there's always, you'll find a battery of journalists in tow. So for the presidential candidate under the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition, after voting in Nairobi, and that is in the morning, definitely it's not even a press statement. There is always that address that follows. So ideally, and you'll find that when they get to the polling stations, they will have a look through at what's happening, and they will vote just like every other person. Remember, for you to seek elective office in Kenya, one of the things you must do is that you must be a registered voter. That cuts across all 6 elective offices in the country. Mm-hmm. So that is what they've got to do. And that is for Azimio. We know that the Agano Party candidate, More Wahiga, is going to be voting at Upper Hill, and also his running mate will be voting later, and this is at different points. And we also have got out in Uasin Gishu County, where we've got a team that is based there, keeping up with Deputy President Ruto. He's also going to be voting tomorrow morning, and we've got his running mate Rigathi Gachagua voting in Madeira. So we've got all those teams covered, and we've got George Wetikoya, who's voting in Kakamega County. He's under the Roots Party. So all these candidates will be covered, and as usual, everyone will want to say, yes, the process was good. They will not even talk about what's happening, because by the time they vote, which is 10 a.m., the queues will be long. So they will just give their personal experiences, and we will have it all documented from Kakamega County, Nairobi, Uasin Gishu County, Nyeri County, Kirinyaga County. All those will be covered, Ben. And also to weigh in on this is that it's not anyone who's basically allowed at any of the polling stations, and this has been alluded to by IBC Chair Wafula Chebukati. He has simply said it is the media, agents, and accredited observers and election monitors will be allowed near the polling centers. This is where the primary voting goes on. And for Minor and Advice Mudalo, we've seen what can happen if there is unrestricted access to these polling centers that are across the country, 46,000 odd. The way forward for Kenyans, even as they try to get a glimpse of the presidential candidates, gubernatorial candidates, and parliamentary candidates.
Well said. And talking of advice, also participating in the poll. So I'll allow you to have the final word before we let you go and, of course, continue with this live discussion.
Thank you so much, Ben. And I would want to actually just pick up from the aspect of who is actually allowed at the polls, at these centers and the tallying and the polling stations. It's important that Kenyans get to understand that the IEBC is the body mandated to handle this election. All we have to do as a people and as a citizenry is to exercise our democratic right to head to the ballot and vote. After we vote, let us allow the institution and everyone who is mandated to be within the polling station, to be within the tallying centers, to take it up from there. There will be no need of people attempting to stick to the polling stations and causing a bit of disorganization, because that is sometimes what plunders us into a bit of quagmire when people start arguing at the polling stations. Trust the institutions that they are going to deliver these results. The country is the Ministry of Interior, together with other security agencies, have provided adequate security to these polls. So let us go to the polls, put down our vote the candidates that we want, vote the candidates that can be able to take this country forward in the next 5 years. Then let us go back home, follow through the television stations and radio stations and every other media, including online media, and let these results be delivered to us. And whichever way this goes, whether the person you vote for takes the lead or not, it's important that we maintain a state of peace and calmness, because that peace and tranquility is what we need most as a country. Thank you very much.
Indeed. Thank you so much, and thank you for your insight and your advice.
Welcome.
Has been Advice Mudalo, who actually has to leave us because he has to participate in matters polls, but we do continue with this. And before I toss the ball to Wahome. Do you believe what IEBC is doing, ensuring that it has fired all those people who have been mentioned or have been apprehended because of one or two things colluding with even some of the candidates, will boost the trust and ensure that Kenyans have more confidence in the electoral system and IEBC as you live?
It is the only option that the IEBC has, because this election only happens once. Therefore, it has no time for warning letters, for people to be warned and people to be summoned for any explanation. So for as long as you are at a position that Kenyans find it difficult to trust you, then it is only prudent that you are not part of the process completely. That is the only way. So I agree with the IEBC that those people should be edged out completely. But also, it should be able to ensure that the officials going forward are standing by the guts and not getting themselves into such kind of quagmire. Because again, it will be a very awkward thing if we have so many of them getting to be fired at this time, because again, these are people who have been trained for quite some time, and of course you don't find those replacements quite easily with equal competence. So it's important that they ensure that the officials are credible and the officials are standing guard and ensuring that they are standing to the oath that they took to protect this vote and not to be partisan.
Maina, perhaps you can also weigh in on that, the actions by IEBC, swift shooting from the hip to ensure that we have a credible election. Does it build confidence?
Yeah, it builds confidence. It actually also instills some level of objectivity within its ranks among the electoral officials. It means that IEBC as a body is on top of things in regards to governing its human resource. And I think it is very commendable. We are on matters of the future and the present of our nation. It is only fair that IEBC as the facilitator of this election be shrewd in terms of ensuring that Kenyans get value of their democracy that they have gotten with blood and sweat and a lot of perseverance in regards to getting to where we are. In terms of electoral officials, the people who are supposed to be within the premises of our polling center, I think the law is clear in regards to the persons who should be there. First of all is the people who are accredited by the IEBC, in this case the media, the observers, and all these stakeholders, the political actors, in this case the candidates. They are allowed to visit the premises, and also the voter, the electoral officials, the police officers, in this case, ensuring that the process is calm and is within the premises that has been set within the law. So these are the people who are mandated, or they have the clearance to be within the premises. Otherwise, if you cast your vote, just leave the polling center, go home. Because the point is that you're supposed to be within the distance between the person who has cast the vote with the polling center should be, or the actual booth should be 400 meters. That is what has been stated as a guideline of the election. So that means that even as we call the people to come and guard the vote, the guard to vote, the guarding the vote is actually, you cast your vote, you stay 400 meters from the premises. When the process of counting is done, you can now take the photo of the Form 34A, which is going to be put on the wall by the presiding officer. So I urge Kenyans to turn in large numbers, come and elect your leaders. Come and elect the person you believe can deliver you from the current situation that you are in. So, and that means that you come and elect your leaders. For you to have the right to criticize or to point out mistakes that can happen after the election in regards to the leaders that you have elected, it comes with, first of all, electing a leader. Whether you vote for that person or not, first of all, go and elect the person that you believe can change the fortunes of your country and the fortunes of your livelihood.
And still on transparency, IEBC not only did give media a chance to take the photo, they told us that we can tally the votes. What we cannot is to declare that aspect of transparency.
Yes, Troy, this is something that has been happening even in other jurisdictions. We have seen in American democracy, media taking a center stage in terms of airing the projections of the tallying of the whole process. And I think the participation of the media in the electoral process actually makes the whole process to be open, because I am looking at the media being an alternative, not necessarily, actually not an alternative, being a complementary to the IEBC process. So media has a center stage or a primary role in regards to this election. The only thing I would urge the media, and that's why the chairman was very categorical, let the media be objective. During the campaigns, we have had some media houses appearing to be having a candidate in the whole electoral process, or in the whole campaign process. The call to media to be objective in these processes, to know that they have been given the green light to participate in this election in regards to tallying and projecting numbers to the members of the public, but not to announce the numbers. But if they have been given that leeway, then it is upon them to know that they have a patriotic duty to be as objective and to be impartial in regards to the whole electoral process as possible.
Indeed. In case you just joined us, this is Kenya Decides, where we are having a 360 degrees coverage of the general election, which are slated to commence at about in the next 3 or so hours. Looking at social media, you can see people today, they have decided they're going to wake up quite early. Wahome.
Well, sure enough, it's a night when very many people do not take their sleep, because they say that you get to the polling station early so that you can cast your vote and get back to your daily activities. It is a public holiday today, and we are just about 3 hours, 45 minutes to the opening of all the polling stations across the country where the Kenyans will cast their vote. And one of the things that has been spoken about, and by the IEBC chair Wafula Chebukati, one is what he referred to as a results transmission system. And there are also two constituencies which many people always forget when it comes to the presidential election. There is the National Correctional Service Centers, that is the prisons, and there is the diaspora vote. Those are two areas which fall purely under the IEBC, and they're the ones who will be declaring the results later tonight. And O'Brien Kimani, who's based at the Bomas of Kenya, which is one of the places where we are reporting from across the country, spoke with Commissioner Justice Nyang'anya, and let us listen to that interview between Commissioner Nyang'anya and O'Brien Kimani.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Ben, Troy, Joe here in Broadcasting House. Of course, we're here at the National Tallying Center. We continue to monitor event as they unfold here. This is now becoming the nerve center of this election as Kenyans troop to the polling stations to choose their leaders. Well, there has been a lot of development coming out of this National Tallying Center, and now joining us on the set is IEBC Commissioner in charge of ICT, Justice Nyang'anya, is going to shed some light in regard to some issues like diaspora voting and, of course, the transmission of results here at the National Tallying Center. Justice Nyang'anya, thank you very much indeed for finding time to be with us this evening.
Thank you very, very much, O'Brien, for inviting me. I'm delighted.
Welcome. Kindly take us through the kind of preparedness in terms of ICT infrastructure that IEBC has deployed to ensure that there is seamless and flawless there is a flawless and, of course, a seamless transmission of voting results?
Absolutely. We have done everything that is required to be done. We have all the KIMS kits that we need and extras. And we have been telling people that last time we had only 3 extra KIMS kits per ward. This time we have 6 of them. And I think we are much prepared than we were in 2017 elections. And I think I'd like to assure Kenyans that the results transmission, the identification will be superb. Because we have, Brian, 3 areas in which we use KIMS kits or technology. And this is voter registration. Then we have voter identification. And then we have the results transmission system. So tomorrow, we have already finished with voter registration, where we took the biometrics. Now we are going on to the second stage, which is identification. The vote in Kenya is about digital and manual. And so tomorrow, when you walk in and the clerk takes your biometrics. And your biometrics is what we used to identify or to register you with. And whatever is in the KIMS kit is what is in the manual register. So if we don't find you with your fingers, we can then try to find you through alphanumeric, which is through your ID card. And if you are not there, you are not there.
You're not. It means that you are not registered, and so
you are not registered.
You're not going to vote.
You are not going to vote. And a number of people have told us that I registered, and sometimes they used their passports instead of ID card. And so when they come to verify, they use the other ID card, not what they use to register, and we can't find them. And so, and again, remember, we had given people about 30 days to verify their details in the system, in the register. That is when you could say, I had registered possibly in 2013 or in 2014, but my name is not here. Then we actually register you if your name is not there, because those who are in the register are people that were registered in 2013 and 2017, and now 2021, 2022. So we are completely ready with the KIMS kit. We are completely ready with the 3G, 4G network. We have already have a conversation with the Safaricom, Telecom, then Airtel,
and Equitel.
No, just those 3.
Just those 3.
Those 3 are the ones that are giving us connection.
What is your fallback measure? I mean, in case there is a network outage, and it can happen.
We have, we are not doing this online, and so when you are being identified, we don't need any network around. Neither do we need KPLC electricity. And so the fallback there is not really.
So you're using local area network?
Yes. So we will then at the level of transmitting results, that is when now we will be using SIM cards.
Help us understand these, and this can be a concern to any one of us, because we are living an era whereby criminals have become, they are much more ahead than security agents, and in case there is a jamming of system within the voter transmission process, what fallback measure is there?
I think this is something that our people have looked at, and they know what they can do. There was a little jam when we were doing simulation, and it was quickly unclogged. But it was a jam because one of the players that we had placed as the primary source had not confirmed that they were working with us, and that was Safaricom. So now they are in place, and whatever jam that is there, they will be working on it, and we'll be working on it. And because this is a national activity, all eyes are there, and any little thing that may cause delay is sorted out quickly, and I don't think they will give any room to anybody to play around with any of these things.
I mean, we're just next to the National Tallying Center, the auditorium, what now you're calling the Uchaguzi Center. And I want to take you back to 2017, where the transmission of results, that were being beamed live on the screen, somehow the system jammed and it stopped. Are you anticipating something like this? And what safeguards have you put in place to ensure that a repeat of 2017 does not recur?
I think some of the issues that happened in 2017 presented an extremely critical learning areas. And those are the learning that we are taking. And every cloud has a silver lining. That was a very embarrassing situation, but we don't want to go there now. So we have learned from that, and we are prepared for it. This time, there was suspicion that maybe some people may have played with the text, because we were actually transmitting text. This time we are transmitting image.
So it is
so image is not as interesting as text, because text you think you can play around with. But your image and my image, I mean, if they changed yours, they don't know what to change it into. So the image will remain image.
This is going to be in PDF format?
I don't know actually whether it is going to be in PDF form or not, but I know that it is going to be image. Nobody can change it. Yes.
Talking about embarrassment, I mean, the Commission has just told the nation that 4 areas will not have they will not have an opportunity to pick some of their candidates, like Mombasa and Kakamega. They will not be able to choose their governors because of a ballot mix-up. The same is going to happen for those who are targeting to vote for members of parliament in Kacheliba and Pokot South. How did this happen in a process that one would imagine can be considered to be watertight or airtight?
Even a flawless process sometimes don't achieve the ultimate ideal goal. There are certain hiccups that will always be there, and this is one of them, unintended completely. And when we asked our poll officials to now check and make sure that whatever now they are taking to the stations are what had been packed and what they were what was ordered for, those emerged, and that is how we actually discovered them. We quickly talked with our printers and we looked at the ballot proofing that we had done here, and they said, "Oh my goodness, this one is not good. This is bad, but this is our mistake, because the ballot proofing that you had sent to us are good." And so such slips do happen.
Did you have your team?
Even in the best of circumstances.
Did you have your teams embedded with the printer?
Oh yes, our teams were always there.
Always
but
there.
You see, what happened is that these are some of the orders that were sent much later, and because as the chairman had said, these are we had required the printers to send all the printing materials before the 26th of last month. But now they were sent after the 2nd. So we really don't know what happened, but and that's the reason why we are saying that some of these things needs to be taken early, so that when there is a mistake, an eventuality that a mistake is happening, 2 eyes and 3 eyes can look at it and say, just a moment, this needs to be sorted out. But now they are doing it in a hurry because things have to be here before, so that they are sent to the constituency, the various constituencies in time.
Have you flagged any other anomaly within the ballot papers?
We have asked our